Welcome to the Game of Thrones pre-show. I am Frederick Philip von Weiss, and you are consuming the Thunder Nerds, a conversation with the people behind the technology that love what they do and do web good. And today we have a very special guest. We have someone that definitely does web good. We have a, let me read this perfectly. We have UI engineer, developer, future boss lady, community builder, tech writer, and co-host on Toolsday. Let's welcome Una Kravets. Welcome, Una.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Thank you for joining us.
I love the pre-Game of Thrones intro because I watch that show religiously.
Oh yeah, don't worry, dude. We're gonna make sure that we cut this off right before so we can see what happens. So what do you think? Jon Snow dying tonight or what?
This is what I'm wondering. Like, will Jon and Dany have that conversation before one of them dies, or will we never have that scene on air? I feel like I don't want to give away too many spoilers here for people who don't watch the show.
So I'm pretty sure that Jon and Dragon Lady are he's her nephew, from my understanding, and that
and HBO has put that out, so that's not really a spoiler anymore.
Oh, it's not. Okay, cool. I just figured that out from that conversation that Sam and what's her name? I don't remember the woman's name had, and are they married?
I don't know if they got married, but they're together, so...
Yeah, let's just say
partners?
Partners. They're partners. And about that, so I think that Jon's going to be the king of the North forever, and she's going to be the queen of the South, and they're going to rule in peace for 1,000 years, and that's what's going to happen.
That's like the happy path, but it's Game of Thrones. You never get the happy path.
Well, I think we're going to have
technically now...
Go ahead.
I don't know. I think technically now, because of that annulment piece, Jon is next in line to the throne in front of Dany Khaleesi, so he has more of a shot in the realm of the kings to be on the throne legally.
That's true. You think she would bow the knee though? I think he'd be cool.
No,
I think he'd be I'll go north and you go south and we're cool.
That's ideal, but it's not going to happen. I think one of them's going to die. I don't know who it's going to be. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see.
Tonight at 9 o'clock, Game of Thrones pre-show.
Yeah.
So anyway,
what
were we talking about? I know, I'm so excited.
I don't know, tech.
Yeah, tech. Hey, I discovered you. I guess discovered you. Whatever. I discovered you by listening to your podcast. A few people turned me on to it, Toolsday, and I really, really enjoy your show. You guys put on a really great show.
Thank you. So Toolsday is just a project that came about. Me and Chris, we both started at IBM, and we kind of met there working on, the same team, but kind of from different perspectives, and we decided to record our conversations. So things we thought about. People don't like super long, drawn out, shows. They just want to get some information that helps them do their job better. So it's just kind of a fun time. We started getting more guests on the show. We talk about different tech tools every show and kind of theme it around that, but sometimes we have episodes that aren't really around tools per se. So it's kind of grown and expanded.
Yeah, the last episode you had, what was it, the Digital Nomad? Am I saying that right?
Yeah. So we had Nicole on, and it was very cool just to hear her about her experience, starting a business and making that work as she traveled. It was very cool.
Yeah, I've known so many people that just travel around. I have a friend that traveled the country. He went up from here to Alaska, just working in an RV, and then opened a brewery. And I mean, he does that. He develops, and it's just cool. Remote working is the best thing ever.
We're very lucky that we're now in a place in time and also just technologically that it's becoming more and more common for people to do that. I love remote working. I lived nowhere between August and November of last year, when I just I moved recently to New York, but before that I was in Austin, Texas. And in between that, I was just nomading, quote unquote, throughout Europe. And I found that it was the happiest time of my life. So I might do it again.
That's awesome. Where did you go in Europe? Yeah. What places?
So I kind of followed whatever conferences I was going to. And then also I spent a month in Portugal. And Portugal is perfect for East Coast nomading because you can have the whole morning free, and then East Coast hours are 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Or if you want to work early, you could 1 to 9. And then in Portugal, everyone eats at 9, 10 p.m. dinner anyway. So it's very normalized there. So I found that it was just this beautiful place. I had so much fun there. It was not super expensive to live there. The people are super nice. It's just this beautiful country, and I stayed in Porto mostly. And I found that working there remotely for East Coast companies was like perfect.
Oh, that sounds so nice to do something like that. Just travel around and take in I'm sure it was completely beautiful and mind blowing over there too.
Yeah, it was. Oh, if you have a chance to go to Porto, it's north in Portugal, and it's just like, oh, one of my favorite places in the world.
Oh, nice. Yeah, too, and it makes so much sense. We were just having a conversation about this on our last episode with Amber Osborne about how it makes good economic sense for a lot of businesses to get rid of that brick and mortar and to go with something like just more remote workforce, because you don't have to be stuck with the pool of talent that's in your local radius. You could expand to the whole globe, and you have a lot more people that are might be suitable or good for your company.
Yeah, so I currently work at a company called DigitalOcean, and we are half remote. And I think it's very cool. When I first started, it was a little bit less. Now it's a little bit more, just in terms of the makeup of the organization. And we have developers in Brazil, Berlin, Ukraine, all over the coast in the US. And it's been really great because we can just really hire people who are super talented but might have families and aren't willing to move. And that's fine. That shouldn't be a deterrent. And because of that, like, remote first culture, everything is online. So if I wanted to work from home, it's really not a big deal. People do it all the time. I think having like that option too it's great. Every company should be remote optional.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a lot of companies that are more sticklers for having people in seats, and I could understand it to a degree, depending on the position that you hold. You might have somebody that is more of a director level or a C level. They really have to have some FaceTime with people, or they really need to be at a location, possibly. I don't know. But then there's other people that are more creative that need to be or would behoove them to not be stuck in a office, or just have them be creative where they're naturally creative, right?
Yeah. And also, like you were talking about, you save so much money on rent. Like, my company saves a lot of money by not having to have additional floors in Manhattan for our office. And, happier employees create better things. Like, they build better, they build faster. And open work environments, like open offices, aren't really the best place for everyone. So having that option to let somebody create their own work environment is really great.
Yeah, that's a good point too, because a lot of people, you don't have just extroverts, right? You have a lot of people that are introverts that need to be within a smaller space, or just a private space, or just don't aren't there's people that just aren't creative in any kind of way within a large group of people. That open thing is, for me, that's just
Yeah, I keep getting distracted. There's meetings all the time. Like, people walk by, and I mean, I liked it. I missed it when I was traveling a lot, so I kind of like this theory of going away for 4 months and coming back to the office for 4 months and going away. Like, that's, to me, a good compromise. But yeah, sometimes it's just it's hard to work when people are always around. People that you like, people you want to talk to.
Oh yeah, no, I get it, because for me, like, I'm a chatty Cathy. Like, if I see people walking by and they're talking about something, I have to stop what I'm doing, because I can't think about what I was typing, and wait, what were you guys talking about? Blah blah blah. What happened on Game of Thrones? Yeah, I think John did that too. We're gonna get an ice dragon. Who knows?
Oh, that'd be awesome.
I'm really looking forward to that. I really want one of those, like the king, what is it, the Night King, to take one of those dragons. That would be so. That
would be insane.
Yeah.
I was just about to say, do you think the Army of the Dead will get a dragon?
I do. I think that shit's dropping tonight. I'm really excited and
my heart.
My heart. Yeah, it's gonna be tight. Yeah, too. There's think about the future, right? There's also things like VR, AR, mixed reality, if you will, and all those things. So again, to cite last week's episode, we were also talking about having a virtual conference rooms or virtual offices that, if you do need to dial in, you could be in a virtual environment with the people that you work with, and kind of like a surrogate, if you ever saw that movie with Bruce Willis. But you could be in that environment, and you could still have that interaction if that's something that's required.
Yeah, I think that's what Facebook is trying to do. I don't remember when it was. A few months ago, there was a demo that they had put out, and it was just that. It was like a virtual conference office room thing. But I definitely see that becoming more and more prevalent as VR kind of grows and evolves and becomes more affordable. So I wouldn't be surprised. I also think VR is exciting for like educational purposes. That's, I think, a really great use for it.
I think they'll drop the price of, what is Oculus now, like $500?
I have no idea.
I think it's like $5. I think that, you know, they'll probably drop that the way technology goes. Like it's going to be $100 in 3 years. I mean, when HD TV came out, it was like, I don't know, like $10,000 or something like that. So, you know, time moves things along. Hey, speaking of the company you work at, DigitalOcean, do you mind telling us a little bit about that place and what we exactly you do there and what's it about? It's a pretty interesting concept.
Yeah, so DigitalOcean is basically cloud infrastructure. They call themselves a cloud for developers. It's a really beautiful UI for creating your own virtual machines and having space. And now we have load balancers. We have a lot of other features that you can add on to your droplet, which is your virtual machine, kind of like in this world. So yeah, it's essentially trying to simplify cloud architecture. And I think it's done a really good job of that because, I mean, I started using it when I was like a designer in college, and it was something that I could get behind, and like someone had to kind of teach me about it, but I had much more control over my virtual machine, my server, my files. And now it's just becoming a lot more robust. It's kind of the goal of the current like trajectory of the company to like provide more feature sets for developers and companies to build and grow from. So yeah, what I do there is I work on the design system currently. I've kind of done a bunch of different things, been there for, I guess, about a year and a half. But I was working on front-end infrastructure previously, kind of trying to get metrics monitoring in place. And now I'm working on accessibility, putting that into this unified design system and making sure that our developers have some kind of toolkit that they can use to like build things in that they don't have to think about. And like I said, accessibility is a big part of that. Some like nice architecture for CSS is a big part of that. And then you know, trying to unify all these teams, design engineering is kind of a lot of people ops as well.
I'd imagine. Yeah, it's and you do work with Chris from your show, right?
No, I did at IBM. I worked with him.
Okay, so I listened. I thought it was not the last one, but the one prior to that. I thought you guys were talking about a design system that you worked on, but maybe he was referring to something that he was working on. But
we did work on Bluemix together on the design system there that has eventually become the Carbon design system, and they open sourced that. So that was really how we met, and we did a lot of like discussing about our different opinions there, and that's kind of what bonded us as friends. Really, it was that experience.
That's cool. I love that you guys, you know, you did that and you took it to the show. What made you guys think about like we got to make this into a podcast?
I think it was just that we had such good conversations that we thought would be interesting to record and share with people. And at the time, there was a lot of like grassroots support for just creativity in terms of the audio space within IBM. And there were a lot of people who were trying DJ sets out, and there were people who were like getting involved in IBM radio. And so we decided to like create the first talk show in IBM radio at the same time. We open sourced it and made it a podcast. So we just kind of started it for us. We had no audience. It was just us.
Well, a lot of podcasts start that way. So how do you guys, if you're not working together now, how do you get together at Tuesdays at 2? Like, how does that happen?
The show is pre-recorded, so we record when we can.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
it used to be a live show, but since then we pre-record because we also have guests. It's really impossible to make sure it's at that exact time.
Yeah, I hear that.
And we just do virtually. That's why we both have nice microphones now. We have a setup. We have our flow. Like he edits the audio. I figure out guests for the show.
And you
and it's really good
the songs to the table, which you've brought to the table since episode 1.
Yeah, so funny story about that. We were supposed to have our friend who was like an audio engineer make us an intro song. And like he just kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And we thought, okay, so we're just gonna do this thing. We'll add this song later. You know, whenever you're ready, it's cool, throw it in there. You just never made us a song, and people loved the singing, so it became a part of the show.
I love the singing. I love that for every episode. It's kind of like it's kind of like its own character.
Yeah, it's grown. I got a ukulele recently, so that's become a part of the intro songs now. I don't know. So what we do for the intro songs is I take a popular song, I reword it, I make it nerdy, and I sometimes make it relate to the show content. And it becomes a new intro song for every episode. We've had like 55 or 56 episodes now with different songs.
But no, it always sounds really good. You know, I was thinking you should do LL Cool J next. I actually wrote a song for you. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So this is my intro for you guys. Don't call it Throwback Thursdays. It's Toolsdays, Tuesday at 2. I know that you know that you know that I knew. Making the code rain down like a monsoon. Listen to the fingers type boom, explosion. Overpowering, over the J, yes, CSS. Yes, I'm towering. I can't wait till the very next episode drops. Podcast so good, make you call the cops. Tuesday gonna knock you out. Una and Chris gonna knock you out. Una and Chris talk with them out. That's what a podcast is all about. Breakdown. Pretty good, right?
Oh my god, amazing. I might just steal this audio and put it on our next show.
You're very welcome.
Is that okay?
Oh my pleasure. Yes. Yeah, please.
Oh
I actually wrote that in my sleep the other night.
Yeah, and then you woke up and you had to write it out. Is that how
actually,
that works?
Yeah, I know. I honestly, I did. Like, I had that in my mind. I was like, oh, you know what would be cool?
That's amazing.
Well, I'm also
impressed. I wasn't expecting that.
I wanted to keep it a surprise. Well, I'm also a musician. I grew up in bands. Like, I grew up doing screamo, rap, toured around the Eastern Board, whatever you call it. Yeah, so I have a lot of experience of that. I know you must have a lot of musical experience. Could you tell us about that?
Oh, I'm not a musician at all. I'm a terrible singer.
Me? What? You're a what singer?
I think I'm a terrible singer. I just do it because it's entertaining.
You're nuts. You have a wonderful voice.
Okay, maybe if we auto-tune it, but
no, seriously, you have a really good voice. I think you're just being modest.
I used to play the oboe in like festival band in high school.
Oh yeah? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
what's
that's
the
my
oboe?
musical experience.
What's the oboe? I'm really embarrassed to say I do not know the oboe.
You know what a clarinet is?
Yes.
So it's a clarinet-like instrument that's a little bit smaller and thinner, and it uses a double reed to create music. Yeah, and that was my thing that I did. But then I had to choose between music and art, and I chose art, and so I had to stop playing the oboe. But it was a lot of fun.
See, I had that same experience where I had to choose between drama and art, and I kind of felt like I wanted to do the acting thing, but I went to I don't know if you could tell, but then I went into to art, and I did that. I actually graduated with a degree in art and graphic design and photography.
Oh, nice. From college? I'm talking about high school right now.
Oh, okay. Well, in high school, in high school, it was I had to choose between drama and art because let me preface in
college you have the option. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
In high school they limit you.
Yeah, in our high school we had this visual performing arts program. So the last 4 periods of your high school education were just art. So if you wanted to do drama, dance, art, traditional art, you did that for the last 3 or 4 periods of your day.
Nice.
It was pretty cool.
We had like a similar thing, but
yeah, I'm really surprised. See, we ask a lot of people about how they got their beginnings, and I'm going to ask you that in a second. But usually when we ask people about how they got their start, it's probably 99%, 98%. They're all, yeah, you know, I had a band, I made our flyers, I made a website, which is how, you know, for me, the same thing. And I was going to guess the same exact thing for you. I'm so surprised you weren't starting out a musician. And I know you don't see it, but you have a wonderful voice. So how did you get your start?
It's funny you say that, like, about the band thing, because I know a lot of my colleagues have started out that way. So it's interesting to see all these different like musicians become developers.
It's so prevalent. It's so interesting.
I kind of started through this lens of fashion design. When I was young, really young, I wanted to be a fashion designer. And I'm talking like I started getting online in online communities when I was 7 years old, 6, 7 years old. I was way too young, like inappropriately young. I'd go into like AOL chats and like report everyone for cursing because it was against the rules. Like I would be, they would say ASL and I'd say 6 and they didn't believe me. And that was me like typing like this in the computer. And then I discovered this chat program called The Palace. And The Palace was a community of people. I was probably around 8 years old at that point, where you would FTP into a server. I didn't understand any of this when I was that age. I only understood this later. And it was a visual chat client. So a big part of this was there were different worlds. Like people could host their own Palace servers, and I eventually hosted my own. It's like kind of more like complex things that I didn't realize I was doing. So it was just kind of like fun. But a big part of that was like this cartoon doll community. And you would have like different guilds, and you would make outfits of like the week, and you would have contests. And I learned Photoshop this way. I learned like pixel by pixel editing this way. I learned a lot of like design related things, and also server things kind of unrelatedly. But then after that, like MySpace came around, Neopets came around. I learned how to code on Neopets. That was my like HTML, CSS learning. MySpace came out. I made layouts for all my friends. And then when I was in high school, I took a class called Intermedia Design, where we learned Flash. And what really drove me to that was that I could make these like drag and drop like fashion games. And so I learned ActionScript, and I learned like how to just start like manipulating content and elements in Flash. And I like loved that. I loved it so much.
That was amazing back in the day.
Really
AS3. Yeah.
Yeah. ActionScript 2.0 was like my shit back in the day. I loved it. So that was kind of the end of high school. And then from that, I went into college doing a dual degree in computer science and graphic design, because I wanted to kind of dig in more.
Oh yeah, you definitely did the right thing then with those majors, because I mean, obviously look where you're at now, so that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a lucky choice.
Probably a little bit of an educated guess too. I mean, I'm sure you had some context of people telling you which way to go, and especially with the things that you enjoyed and your talents where they were. So yeah, that's awesome. And you probably too have well, not probably, you definitely have an outgoing personality, if you don't mind me saying, and I mean that in a positive way, because you're also out there not only with the podcast, but you're also speaking a lot as well. Like you're traveling around a lot. You're going to be speaking at an event apart. Like that's fucking awesome. That's huge.
Yeah, I feel really lucky to be given these opportunities. I started speaking at conferences when I was 19. I think that's my first conference.
At 19? Wow, that's awesome. I'm sorry to go off topic on topic, but what did you speak about at 19? Where's your
I spoke at a Ruby conference about designing for like an international context, so globalization, internationalization, what that meant in terms of layout, in terms of typography, color, iconography. Just sort of like did this design talk at a Ruby conference, and it went over pretty well. And I was super nervous. I was like shaking in the women's bathroom, like with these note cards. And this is before conferences like tried to start increasing diversity. So I was literally like the only woman there. There's nobody that came in the bathroom. And I was just like, I need to memorize this talk that I've written on postcards because I don't know any other way. I think I designed it in like InDesign or something.
That's awesome. Hey, whatever works.
Yeah,
right?
I definitely did more design then. And now I'm more in like the engineering technical world.
Well, it's funny too, because a lot of it it kind of intertwines, right? Like the thing with labels is like it's more about I think probably where to place people in companies, or what you want to put out there in the world. But I mean, the line between design and development, what a front-end developer is, what a front-end engineer is, it's all kind of blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, definitely. It's really weird because titles, I feel like, don't mean much anymore at all. People just kind of decide whatever title they want. Even levels of seniority don't really mean much because at every company, it means something different. At a startup, it's going to mean something different than at a large corporation.
Yeah, totally.
So I find titles really silly. Like, call yourself whatever you want. It doesn't matter. Just let your work speak for itself.
I'm the horse wizard at my company, so that's my title.
I'm just yeah.
So anyway, hey, I was wondering if you wouldn't mind kind of talking about a little bit of what you're going to review at Event Apart, and I believe it's one of the talks that you gave, and I was looking at some of your speaking events about image optimization, and I had no idea about this new format that Google's putting out, and maybe you could remind us about that too. Like, and I went through the whole video, and it was really it was eye-opening because I didn't really understand like all the things that went into it. Like, I understood about like the different kinds of dither on a GIF. Make sure GIF, not GIF, everybody. Wait. Which way does he say it?
Wait, what?
He does say GIF, right? Well, you were talking about like the different kind of like dithers, like the noise dither versus a pattern dither. But yeah, I'm really interested in that. Sorry?
I was mentioning the about your pronunciation of GIF.
Oh yeah. It's definitely it's the peanut butter way you say it is GIF. That's the way the guy says it's. The creator of GIF is actually saying it's GIF.
Like for graphics interface format?
Yeah.
Yeah, for graphics, not giraffics.
Not graphics, what?
Yeah, I'm saying it's GIF, not GIF.
Oh yeah.
It's graphic.
Yeah. Sorry, a little slow. Yeah. But yeah,
okay, this is like
if you could tell us a little bit about that talk and kind of go into that new format that Google has. It sounds interesting.
Yeah. So I feel like I talk about a lot of different concepts that kind of intersperse between design and development, and this is one of those. It's a more technical talk, but it's about images. It's about why certain image formats are better than others for different types of things. And I talk about the compression. So I think what you're talking about is one type of JPEG compression that Google recently came out with, and it's called Getsley compression. And Getsley it's not a new type of image. Well, I do talk about like WebM and WebP. Those might be what you're talking about there. But let me talk about Getsley first, then we'll talk about WebM and WebP. So Getsley is a type of algorithm that is used within the standard JPEG compression process that allows for a smaller file size because it's using a different algorithm to kind of run through the pixels within the JPEG. And the way that JPEGs are compressed is by taking these like 8x8 pixel blocks, running through them, looking at the differences between them, and it's usually based on this quantization table. And with this Getsley compression, the quantization table changes for every single set of pixels, whereas normally that doesn't happen. So it takes a lot longer to compress, but it does create smaller images since it is like smart compression per unit. And they turn out a little bit smaller, but they have like pros and cons. Like you can't really tell most of the time, and it takes forever, so it's not really feasible. Also, it's better for larger images, but larger images take longer to compress. So that's Getsley. I think sorry if I get started on this topic, I'll just like go off.
No, please. I asked you about it. Yeah, I'm super interested in it.
I also talk super quickly when I give these talks because I just have so much content to put in like an hour of space. I just want people to get as much as they can out of it. But are you talking about like WebM and WebP formats? Because that's
sure,
also
those two. I mean, I think that's those are pretty new concepts for people as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're pretty well supported now. WebM is more supported than WebP. With WebP, you could use polyfills. You could use a picture element, which is like the best friend of any web developer that cares about image optimization, to send multiple image formats. But the compression of that versus JPEG is honestly like spectacular. With videos, you can get half the size frequently.
Really? Half the size?
Yeah. Yes. Compared to like MP4s. And MP4s are way smaller than like waves and other like MOV formats. So WebM is awesome. Use it always because the standard video element also supports multiple sources. So you don't even need to have a polyfill. You don't have to use picture. You could just send video. Yeah. Use WebM where you can. And WebP also it's not as much of a difference as WebM, but it does save about 30% on average in image size. So think about those. Definitely use WebM. Consider using WebP because it's not fully supported.
Sure. I mean, you could always too write some kind of I don't know, JS or server language to put something else out there for I don't know if you have to support IE9 for some reason, but yeah, definitely.
But it's not even IE9. It's like Safari and Firefox.
Oh,
for
really?
WebP.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's
it's because
interesting.
so the reason why is because they haven't like standardized the format in a like versioned manner. So not everyone agrees to use it yet, and that's why we're seeing a little bit of discrepancy here in browser support.
Oh.
But I still think it's worth it, especially if you're using like either the picture element or some kind of server-side rendering to use WebP.
Yes. Yeah,
It's
I
like,
agree.
what's that word? Progressive enhancement. It's a progressive enhancement.
Yes. Yeah. That makes
For
sense.
performance. It's like instead of for science, I want a GIF that's like for performance.
For performance. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's a cool concept. Well, and we'll put a link to that in the show notes. You know, your speaking
Talk?
event. Where was it at? Yeah, talk. I lost my words there. Which one was that? Where were you when you were speaking at that one?
So I give this talk at an event apart. I've also given this talk at a conference called Shift in Croatia. So I think that there's a pretty good recording of it there. Yeah, so we could definitely share that. Or come to Chicago, August 28th.
Yeah, why not?
I'll be there.
Yeah, it's going to be a really big conference. You're speaking with like people like Chris Coyer and some other big names in the industry. So it's amazing.
And Event Apart really does a great job in their lineup and sourcing amazing, talented people. I'm just mind blown that they let me on that roster because everyone there, I just am like such a fangirl of. So. And it's cool, like they're friends now. That's
awesome. Well, I think too, like we all kind of, as people progress in their career, there's definitely people that you look at, and then you just kind of eventually meet those people, and they become fans of you too. I'm sure you got Chris Coyer listening to your show and singing along with your intros.
There's definitely people in the industry that I've met that I just really admire, who like our first conversation will be that like, oh my gosh, I love your work, and they'll say, oh my gosh, I love your work, and I'll just be like, what? Can we just hug now for 20 minutes? Thank you.
That's awesome. Hug it out.
Yeah, it's been very cool.
Oh, I love that. You know what I wanted to ask you about too is you write for a lot of big publications. Like you write for things like A List Apart, Smashing Magazine, SitePoint, and there's a lot of people out there that write consistently and have been for years, but probably haven't found that either drive or door to write for one of these kind of companies to get that alignment to. One, they probably really would love to do that, or two, they would really love to, have that extra juice of, I write for so-and-so. Do you mind sharing like any kind of tips or how somebody goes about that, or maybe your own story of how you started writing for these companies?
Yeah, so I just started writing my own blog, and I think that if you're writing consistently, that's massive. Not a lot of people do that. And I even have trouble with that now because I feel like I have so many things going on. But most of these sites have submission processes. So if you have an idea, reach out to them. They're great because when you write for something like an Event Apart, you get an editor and you really produce a more quality piece of quality article. So every one of these sites that you mentioned, SitePoint, Smashing Magazine, A List Apart, they all have submission processes. What happened with me is because I wrote so much, I did like series about image effects, and I've just consistently been writing on my own personal blog. They reached out to me to do, different articles for them, and they pay you, so it's it's a nice thing. Like if you're going to write anyway, you may as well make some money from it.
So in other words, you've just been consistently writing, and then they reached out to you because they noticed all your articles. Like your articles started getting popular, and they said this is the kind of content we want.
Yep, exactly. And so now I'm actually writing a book. That's why I haven't been writing as many blog posts. And so I've been trying to condense all that, spend my writing time on this book that has been going on for almost a year now. But hopefully more news on that. Hopefully a pre-release soon.
Yeah, you've been talking about this book on the show for a while.
Yeah, it's it's massive. That's why it's taking so long. It's just about this massive world of front-end development. And so I'm talking about that from a few perspectives, like the soft skills, the foundational skills, mentorship, community, writing, like putting your voice out there, into like all the technical skills that you should know about. So that's everything from like basic CSS, HTML, JavaScript to SEO, internationalization, optimization, performance, accessibility. It's just really big. And then I try to talk about like the future, like VR and AR and what that means. Like what is responsive? How does that relate to the world around us? Like Google's physical web, I think, is a really cool project. Then I talk about like having an impact in the tech space. Like how do you contribute to documentation? How do you become an open source citizen? How do you start talking with people about web standards and getting involved in that kind of stuff? So it's a lot to write about.
Well, yeah, I think you're touching on some really good points here about putting yourself out there is big, not being afraid to write and having ideas that people might not agree with or might criticize or might, I don't know, make you feel bad. But just get yourself out there, whether it's writing a blog or adding your thoughts to some kind of community project, get involved in the open source community. Those are great ways to learn, which is huge, and also to get your voice out there and maybe build your persona in the minds of people. To say, hey, you know what? Actually, I know so and so, and they wrote about this, and they have some great points.
Absolutely. I think that I could owe my career to the fact that when I was in college still, I got so involved in the tech community around me, and I would go to all the events I could. I ended up starting my own meetup group that was about SaaS in DC when I was still in college there. I started writing about this topics. It just started with a small community, the SaaS community. I started writing about advanced topics, experimenting, just writing as I learned. And I felt like that was a really good way to remind me what I learned, so I could go reference my own articles, which I do all the time, just because I'm always forgetting things. And B, it was helping other people learn at the same time. And then sort of that basis of becoming involved in the community, starting other communities, continuing to write, getting other people to become involved in community and writing, has really nurtured what has become my career in this field.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because there's who is it? We were talking to Ben Callahan from Sparkbox, and he was talking about how writing is a requirement for their employees, because they put so much value in writing, because you learn from writing. You have to think about what you're writing. It's a way to organize your thoughts in a cohesive way that makes sense, and it helps you understand what you're trying to absorb as well. Not only just about putting it out for other people to understand it, but also for yourself to help internalize it. Not just do a project and not take it in, but really understand the technology.
Yeah, I think akin to that, doodling and diagramming is also a really great way to learn. And as you're learning, if you create some kind of mnemonic or illustration or technical diagram, you can then help other people understand a concept better by providing your point of view, your mnemonic, your way to remember, and then sharing that out. A project that I recently started is called Dev Doodles, and it started as like this year I decided to do like 5 25-day projects. Like I'm gonna do the same thing every day for 25 days. I failed hard at that. I didn't do this for 25 days in a row, but I have continued to kind of illustrate technical concepts, and it's become something that people have really enjoyed seeing. So I think that too started as like, I'm gonna do this to kind of help myself learn, help myself remember, and then that has helped others. Maybe having a terrible memory has helped me grow in my career because I don't remember anything. I have to like really get a concept down. So it forces me to like dive deep a lot of the time, like put the extra work into just continually reading about a topic and then trying to write it out in a way that helps me remember, which in turn helps others remember.
Yeah, I think that's probably a issue that all of our human species have. That it's, you can't remember everything. There's so much. Like, once you remember when you first started out in the industry that you the more you learn that, the more you learn, the more you know that you don't know. That it's,
yes, I love that.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to like understand that.
Because it goes so many different ways, and it forks here, forks there. Sorry for the fork pun in development, but it forks this way and that way, and there's so many different tangents and parallel technologies and ways of doing things that, you know, every day you're like, oh, what? You could do that? People do that? That's so interesting. And then you could dive in that way and take a left, and you don't remember that you took a right, and you end up in a room that you're like, I don't know how I got here, but I know this now. Like it's so fun, and it's so interesting.
There's also just so much to learn and to keep up with in tech that it's hard to kind of know everything, and nobody knows everything. People specialize in certain things and understand the rest of the field, but I think a lot of newcomers get really intimidated by all of the things, literally just all of the things.
And holy shit,
it's important to it's important to know that you don't have to be an expert on everything.
Well, for anybody that's probably starting out and they think, how am I, there's a lot of people that just organically get into what we do, and they just fall into it because that's where their heart is, and they go that way. But then there's people that, I want to do this. Where do I start? And that's a huge question. So yeah, do I learn React, or do I learn vanilla JS, or what kind of CSS should I learn? Should I use post or pre or any of that? Like, where do I go? And those are tough questions. I usually tell people just build a website. Just start from there. Make something simple.
Yeah. I don't really have the answer to that. Like, I used to be very opinionated on, learn vanilla JavaScript first, but I don't know if I agree with that anymore. I think learn what is most advantageous to you. Like, if you work in a company that writes React, take advantage of the people around you when you're learning. If you work at a company that, is focusing on anything else, like, take advantage of the people around you. Just build projects. See what works better for you, what you like doing, and then start to dig into that more. Yeah, it's hard to prescribe something.
Yeah, you'll eventually get to a place like if you're just doing a freelance stuff and you're building WordPress sites, and you'll get to a point where you have to touch the theme's code, and you'll start learning from there. And this way you got results, you got a check, you built the site. And from there, you could, there's a lot of opportunities to learn.
Yeah, definitely. I started with WordPress sites. My first internship was I came in it as a designer. It started as a design internship, but they were so understaffed in development and engineering that I showed a little bit of interest and ended up just building WordPress sites for the rest of the summer.
That's awesome. See, yeah, that's a great way in, just for to get into that company, I guess, and also opportunities to learn. All goes back to that. There's no right way. There's nobody that's a snob about this. I mean, I'm sure there are people that are snobs about it, but whatever works for you, go that way. If you need to open up Dreamweaver, learn how to make an image tag, go for it. If that's going to help you go down your career path and take you where it's going to take you in 5 years, then don't worry about it. It's all good. There's nobody's looking over your shoulder going, no.
Yeah. Also, there's just so many really good online courses and tutorials that are great to follow for basics. Mm-hmm. And, just look up how to build a website, and you'll find a whole course series. Things that you pay for, or things that are free that somebody wrote a blog post saying, watch this, do this, read this, try that. And what's cool about this industry is that you can find all the resources online for free for everything that you want to learn. And that's really rare. If you are a physicist, you have to pay for books. You have to pay for white papers. Yeah,
there's no YouTube video.
Yeah, exactly. For deep work, deep work in development, it's all online, really. If it's not on Stack Overflow, then you talk to the person who wrote it. You can tweet at them and ask their opinions. and they'll probably respond, especially if it's like a super nerdy topic. People love that. Like they love going deep into things.
Oh yeah, everybody. Yeah, and you don't have to. It's one of those jobs where I kind of equated to the old American workforce, where how the country was built on, or not built on, but we had a lot of people that were in the automotive industry putting together cars. Like it's kind of that's the new developer of these days. Like you don't have to go to college to pick up a lot of these things. You could jump into some YouTube videos and be on your career path in a few months and doing really well, depending on the individual.
Yeah, you really don't have to go to college for this at all. And I think that I have opinions on this subject. I think that college is great, but not for learning how to become a developer. It's a great life experience.
Yes.
Financially, it doesn't make any sense.
Yes.
And I know some of the best developers I know didn't go to college. I used to work at a startup where 4 to 5 people dropped out of college, and they were great and fantastic. And that was a great decision for them. I work with people now who are 19 years old, who are brilliant developers, brilliant engineers who I admire that obviously aren't in college, they're working. Yeah. So I'm very much the camp that you don't need college. College is a fun life experience, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I learned in college, but I don't think I learned anything that I'm doing on my job now in college. I learned tangential things, but I learned everything about front-end development outside of that, because front-end development wasn't a thing 8 years ago.
That's right, yeah. But and again, it all depends on what you're going to college for. But specifically, what we're talking about,
engineering.
Yeah, exactly.
Front-end development.
Yeah, not a requirement. But again, also depends on, the individual. Well, hey, I know we're getting to the end of the show. We're getting close, and I want to make sure that you're watching Khaleesi and the dragons and the Night King turning one into a dragon. Absolutely. So let's get to the meat and potatoes, and I'll let you go. So one of the questions I love to ask people is, if you weren't doing what you do now and you could not touch a computer, what would you be doing?
I can't touch a computer? Ooh.
Nope. No computers in this scenario.
Okay, I would say that I would be a travel writer, because you could do that with pen and pencil, right?
Yes, yeah.
If I can't touch a computer, I can typewriter. Or an iPad. I
no
love
computer,
traveling.
no iPad.
I love traveling so much. It's become a big part of my life, and I would love to be a travel writer, travel blogger. I do write when I travel, and I think eventually I'll collect all of the travel poetry that I write when I go places.
That's awesome.
I have 36 poems now, and I continue to write as I travel. So maybe if I hit 50 poems, I'll publish it or something.
Oh, why don't you start doing that now? Put those out. I want to see that.
They are out.
Oh, they are? Okay. Can I link to that in the show notes?
Yeah, sure. So if you go to travels.surge.sh, it's an experimental CSS site that uses my travel poetry as content for the site. And it's just no rules, please, this won't work on anything but Chrome, but it's fine. I'm just playing with CSS weirdness here. I originally did it for blend modes, because blend modes really weren't supported that well until 2 years ago. And this site is I don't know, I started 3 years ago. And now I just use it as an excuse when I want to play with grid or, I don't know, variables or something. So I sometimes put certain things up there. There's a few tastes.
Nice. All right. Do you sing any of these?
No. This is poetry.
I want that too. I want the poetry. I want you to take the ukulele out, and I want to hear that. I want to hear the voice.
Well, then you can listen to the podcast, Toolsday, Toolsday,
Toolsday.io. Every Tuesday at 2.
Yeah.
Remember that, everybody.
Exactly.
Yes. We will put 7 links to that on the show notes. Last question. And you can hear the new intro by moi.
Oh, yes. Thank you for reminding me. I need to write that down.
You're very welcome. Don't worry. I won't be offended if you don't use it. And
we'll use it.
Oh, okay. Sweet. My last question for you is, and it's more of a, you'll tell me. When you pass away, what's your heaven like? What do you see?
Oh, man.
Slightly existential. That's the word.
This is a very religious question. I feel
I
want to do
the agnostic
if you want
it to be.
Okay. if I take it in like the things I believe in route, it's like people just die and there's nothing there after that. Ideally, I guess that's more of what the question's about.
Well, no, if that's your answer, if you believe once that's it, you don't see anything.
Yeah, I feel like honestly, you got to make the most of life like while you're here. And I've recently started meditating. And I think it's been really helpful in helping me extend my life by looking at every moment that I'm in, like seeing all the things around me and taking that time and understanding that time. It like feels like it slows down because that's all we have. Time is literally the only currency that we have. So I'm really into the idea of like figuring out how to enjoy the present moment, slow down, like enjoy everything that you have around you right now, and I don't know, make the most of it.
Yeah, I think that all goes back to what you were talking about with traveling and taking those that little bit of time here and there to make sure that you do smell the proverbial roses and enjoy life while we have life.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Well said. All right, well, we're just about out. I'd like to ask people, do you have anything that you'd like to communicate to our audience before we go? Any kind of Scooby-Doo moral at the end of the story? Anything like that?
You do you. Don't be afraid of what no one says. Just keep building.
Boom, I love it. Nice. Snap. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Una. I mean, seriously, oh, there goes my computer again. It's been an honor. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Same. And it's been great to talk to you, and I can't wait to hear the next episode where I'm singing.
I'm excited to throw that in there. We'll see. You'll get some good reactions. People have now like just expected songs, so people are hyped for it already.
Yeah, all right, cool. Love that. All right, cool. Thank you so much. And remember, everybody, watch Toolsday Tuesday at 2. Or listen to Toolsday Tuesday.
There's no visual component, so like I don't have to put on makeup for it.
I want to see a video. I'd love to see the video part of that.
No video. It's a podcast.
Possibly in the future. Who knows? All right.
But this is where it is at. So.
Oh, really? See, and I love that. I love the scenery.
This is your video.
All right. Perfect. All right. Thank you so much.
All right.
Una.
Sorry. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.